All right. So, hi guys. First of all, let me again thank Chiiz and Mukesh for this wonderful introduction. So, yeah, as Mukesh said, that I started my career in 2003, and I was the first woman to have entered wedding photography at that point. I still remember it was a very exciting time because it was something completely new. Nobody had heard of candid photography back then. People were still shooting. All the photographers were still shooting the typical with flash on camera flash photography with really no thought, no emotion. It was I still remember when my sister got married and we actually arranged one of the good photographers to shoot a wedding, and we ended up getting photographs of people eating, empty chairs, and just no detailing of the decor and the kind of emotions that went into the wedding or the grandeur. Nothing was captured. And I think, if I'm not wrong, that is the time the question was, there inside me, that why can't somebody, handle weddings more creatively? So let me give you a little background on what I had actually studied before photography. I was actually a graphic designer, a trained graphic designer, and I'd studied 5 years of graphics. So I was sure that I'm, getting into graphic designing till my sister's wedding happened, and when I saw the results, and that's when the idea, I think, cropped in. Uh, the question which haunted me, why, and that's when I got an answer. I started doing my research, and I got an answer within that I would like to get into, wedding photography, and that's how my journey began. So, a little bit of the overview, if you are not familiar with my work. That's me, of course. So that's my journey. I started, as I just mentioned, in 2003, being the first woman. In 2005, by God's grace, I made it to the cover of the Hindustan Times, and Man's World magazine had featured me since I was actually in the Man's World. I was the only woman photographer, and soon after that, in 2006, I released my first coffee table book, which was launched by Malaika Arora Khan, and it was called The Eye of Eternity. Coffee table books on weddings was unheard of, and this idea came up to me that why can't I just pick up all the best weddings that I've shot and put them all in a book form? And that was a fantastic idea that sprung up. I published that book, and I self-published it, self-released it, and I remember having a big grand launch in Olive and calling Malaika to release my book. Soon after that, another idea that came up was, how about having a photography exhibition? So every year, I think I just kept thinking of, how do I make photography, how do I present it more differently? What other creative medium can I incorporate in photography? And then I did my first maiden photography exhibition in Lyon Française. And I still remember having Mandira Bedi come to inaugurate my photography exhibition. After that, in 2009, there is an Italian mosaic company called Chiiz. If one happens to cross over the Defense Colony flyover, the showroom is still there. So it's an Italian mosaic tile, and they wanted to enter the wedding industry and make life-size portraits of brides, which I thought it was a brilliant idea. And they had approached me and made me the brand ambassador. Soon after that, I had another very beautiful experience to shoot the Saudi royal family. So I was again the first one in the country to be invited by the royal family of Saudi Arabia to shoot their great granddaughter's wedding. Ideas didn't stop even then. And then I wanted to now produce a feature film. So I actually just packed my bags, lock, stock, and barrel from Delhi and moved to Mumbai with literally no big daddy in Bombay, no background in filming. But I just had a dream that I wanted to produce a feature film. With all this struggle and hard work, I did manage to produce my feature film and release it in 2012. It was called Chalo Driver. Soon after that, I also did a maiden coffee table book of Sunil Bharti Mittal's life, and that was the first pictorial biography I made. So, in a quick, glance, this is what my journey was like. These are few photographs now that I'd like to run you through. Some of the weddings, gala weddings that I've shot. When we talk about luxury, this is one of the recent weddings which happened in Umid Bhavan, Jodhpur. And this was fantastic to experience because, I still remember this client taught me so much. And I think I learned a lot with this client who just knew how to bring luxury together to the best level. She would go and outsource things from all over the world because she wanted us to, she wanted the guests to flavor the real, if they were, for example, if there were some desserts, French desserts, she wouldn't ask anybody to make it in India. She would actually fly down a chef from France to actually, to make these desserts, authentic French desserts. So yeah, I remember when I shot this wedding, I already knew that this the show flow and how I think it really helps a photographer to understand and to interact with the wedding planners and the guests to understand what when is going to how the show flow is, what's going to happen next. So I knew when the firecrackers happened after this gala dinner, I had to position myself strategically at this point to get the grandest look. Moving on to some more royal weddings that I shot. On the top right is the Saudi royal family, as I just mentioned. Some of the other memorable weddings, the Jindal wedding, and lots of other luxury weddings that I've shot worldwide. That's the beautiful portrait of Kareena Kapoor, my favorite. Here's Genelia and Ritesh's wedding that I had shot. And I remember shooting actually all the three brothers, right, from Amit Deshmukh to Ritesh to Dheeraj Deshmukh, all three brothers' weddings. So I became a part of their family. And yeah, it was, again, one of its kind weddings at that point because there was just so much pressure when it's to do with celebrities. And yet, they were such humble clients that it was just like we were friends and I was shooting for them. And I remember a story that one night I was shooting the reception of his older brothers in Mumbai in Turf Club. And I remember that so my contract was only to shoot until the reception. And suddenly in the night, while I'm shooting, somebody comes up to me and says, Ronicka, will you be able to fly tomorrow morning to Latur? I was like, that's their home constituency, and that's when they originally hailed from. And I remember them coming up to me, and it's not like they told me earlier. So on spot, I just said, yeah, sure, we'll go. And so next morning, after I wrapped up the reception in the night, I was flown to Latur to shoot their homecoming ceremony. And I still remember that was one of the most memorable weddings for me because the whole village was out on the street to greet the newlywed couple. That is Ritesh's older brother, Amit Deshmukh. And I still remember it was a lifetime experience. There was not a single inch of space for me to actually walk through and take a picture. And how I just managed to make my way through, and I saw this, I just wanted a vantage point. So it was a road that leads to their house. And I just saw that the only way I could capture the grandness of this affair was to get a vantage position. And there was no drone, mind you, at that time. Today, life is much easier. We don't have to climb the walls or buildings. We just fly the drone and get a top shot, an aerial shot. But at that point, you had to manually do this, right? So I remember maneuvering through the streets of Latur, and I didn't know the villagers and didn't know the language. I just somehow, with gestures, climbed up the staircase of one of the houses in the village, and went upstairs and took the the aerial shot. And I still remember the couple was looking at me, trying to figure out how this woman is going to make her way through. Is she safe? Like, what is she doing? Where is she climbing? And that picture, that photograph, mind you, became one of their favorite photographs. So that's one story I remembered. Coming to summer weddings. This was Poona Patel's wedding in Mumbai, the much talked about wedding recently. This is a very interesting and a fun moment photograph for me. This is the Jindal wedding, and I still remember when I shot this Sangeet night for the Jindal family. I believe sometimes the candid moments. Lot of times people ask me, like, do you position yourself? How do you know that the moment is going to happen? But I always feel that, once you're in sync with your craft, after certain experience, after some time, moments just come to you. And this was one of the times where it was a fraction of a second. He fell down while, rehearsing, while giving the performance on the stage with his bride and with his fiancée. And suddenly his foot slipped and he just fell. But he just immediately got up after that. And I just happened to catch it. And every time he looks at this photograph, he just laughs and he's like, oh my God, you actually caught this moment. So yeah, like sometimes, you just are there. It just comes to you. You're in sync with it. And sometimes you just know your subject so well that it's going to happen. Of course, not at this point. I wouldn't have known that he's going to fall. But, sometimes that the bride or the groom have a certain way of reactions, and you know that they are going to react in a specific way, certainly. And then that, you're positioned correctly to capture that. So yeah, moving on. This was another favorite bride of mine, Bani Jain. And this moment, again, every time I see it, I just love the vermilion color and the coy bride. Few of the candidates in a glance. Again, in the top right corner is one of the photographs I remember of. I shot this in Goa. So again, I always, if you notice, there are certain photographers which are, pointing in the opposite on the opposite side, and somehow I just, knew that I would like to change the perspective. And I've heard this from a lot of photographers that, ma'am, how do you do this? There is so much pressure during a wedding when they're shooting. Everybody's literally on top of one another. And I always ask them, is that the only place that you can shoot or get a nice photograph? Can you not have look for another, place to probably create completely different perspective to the same frame? And so this is one of the times I just said, instead of being in front, let me just go behind and, let's see what happens. And look at the way the bride's expression is. I don't have to be in front to take that photograph. I'm at the back. I'm the only one at the back. And I made such a nice photograph. So, yeah, moving on. This is another photograph I remember of Riya, a bride in Delhi. And while she was leaving for to the wedding venue, I happened to come outside and I saw this wonderful reflection on the glass, and I just captured it. And this also made one of my favorite photographs. Some of the candidates that I'm known for, from this, I remember when the candid time happened in 2000, back in 2003. Again, my first wedding, which I had shot, was in Ludhiana. And when I went there, nobody knew what candid was there back then, right? Everybody still expected photographers to stand in front and ask them to pose, or especially when they're eating, up to 100% they are going to get a picture. So I still remember when I went to Ludhiana, I was clicking photographs from either behind the wall, or I was sometimes on top of the roof, or sometimes, under a table. And there were a couple of the relatives that were always noticing me. So one of them, the bride's Chachaji, came up to me and asked me specifically, are you from Tehelka? And I laughed my head off. I found it so funny because it was one of the very interesting feedback that I got. And then I got another person who came up to me and said, Madam, are you like a designer photographer? And I said, okay, that sounds interesting as well. So at that point, there were some really cool feedbacks because they hadn't seen somebody shooting from different perspectives and not asking them to pose, or perhaps they don't have the camera right in front of them. So that's when candids had started back then, and people had started appreciating candids. This is one of a pre-wedding I did recently in Canada. Now, as beautiful as it looks, trust me, if I couldn't find the before for you all because of the quarantine, I didn't have that image. It's still in my hard drive in the office, but I really wanted to pull out the before and after for this. But anyway, so the backstory of this is that we were in Canada and we were allotted this time with the couple to shoot this pre-wedding photograph, in this wonderful location with this beautiful vintage car, and everything that we planned. Trust me, nothing went as per plan. So I still remember we were waiting for the car. The car got stuck with a musical video, some Punjabi music video that was being shot in Canada, and the car never showed up on time. So my main prop that was around was missing. And by then I'd lost the light completely. It was beyond twilight. So you can well imagine it was completely bad lighting. And then there was clouds. Somehow, for some strange reason, it was sunny, bright sunny in the afternoon, and suddenly it started becoming cloudy. That particular moment, like just a couple of hours before that. And so everything one can imagine as per plan, nothing was there. So yeah, I mean, all I did was I somehow just went ahead and with that whatever we could, I tried to just capture the image and have it there. And I just thought for a moment I was internally not sure how this is going to be, and I was really disappointed. But when we came back after a few days, after a little time and gap, we reworked on this image and thought, what can we do? So yeah, I mean, this is what we made out of what was absolutely a disaster to begin with. But thanks to system work, you can really, with all the Lightroom, Photoshop, and all of this, you can really enhance photographs nowadays. Coming to some portraits, this is my personal favorite portrait. And this is my, a very interesting man, in fact, my husband's Tayaji, and he had come over. He is, 94, young man. I call him young because, he had such an amazing zeal for life, and he has actually, he's still there, sorry. So, and the most beautiful part about this man is that he could actually, he was somebody he's somebody who's absolutely independent and he believes in being independent. You can see in his eyes the confidence that he has. He belongs to a village, and he speaks straight Punjabi, and he would remember all the, you ask him to do any mathematical question, you give him anything, you ask him to do solve some sort of puzzle or questions or whatever, and in split seconds he'll be ready with the answer. He actually put me to shame. Like, I'm so bad at maths, but this man is just amazing. He would thread a needle without spectacles at the age of 94. And so I was very inspired, and I wanted to create a memorable portrait of this gentleman. And yeah, I mean, the character on his face, the kind of lines and he has at 94, the maturity, and it's just phenomenal. And I wanted to sort of emphasize on that and amplify that. And so that's what this is all about. This is again Puna Patel's wedding in Mumbai, a beautiful moment from there. This is it's this very interesting portrait actually. This is again a portrait of the Jindal family. It's got 4 generations in this photograph. Now it might not be one of the most perfectly positioned or well posed photograph, but it has a fantastic story which I would like to share. This photograph has been taken, first of all, it's been shot in Sinar. Sinar is a large format camera, And I don't think anybody shoots on Sina nowadays. Very few people I know who would actually have ever shot on Sina. So this is, yeah, this is shot on Sina, and it's a manual camera which takes about 45 minutes to actually set up this camera. And it's not like this shot was planned, okay, nothing like that. I was there for the Sangeet, and there was no planning of having this family portrait on that evening. While I was shooting, I just started, the function had just started. And they had a small, I think, a small function before they actually went into the proper Sangeet function. That's when the idea struck, and I saw the family there, the whole family was there, you know. So I just proposed it to the client there and then, impromptu decision, absolutely. And I told them, how about doing a family portrait? I still didn't know there are 67 of them, but I just proposed this, and they said, but we're a large family and we're like 60 plus. I'm like, okay. And I knew that my Mark 3 or Mark 4 is not going to make it because we are just way too many of them. So I immediately thought of my Sina, and I said, okay, I will shoot it, don't worry, but can we arrange all of them like together? So initially the client was very reluctant, and they said, Ronicka, you know what, let's just do it on the wedding night. So I convinced them saying, we'll try today. If it doesn't happen, let's take it up on the wedding. But let's just try, because it's a more controlled environment. You're in your house. You know, once you go on to the wedding venue, you may just have so many pressures, and wedding has, you know, the show floor has so many things lined up that, you know, something here and there, we'll miss this forever. So honestly, it takes a lot for us as photographers to initiate clients into this, because Indian weddings are always short of time. They'll always be running against time. They're not punctual. So it's very important for photographers to make this time, to talk to the clients before. If it can be planned out before, I mean, if I could have planned this shot with the clients much before this idea came to me, of course I could have positioned them better, you know, and I could have had a cleaner looking shot. But just the fact that I got 67 people in this frame at that night on an impromptu decision, they took 20 frames for me. So that was an added, you know, value for my work. And I could, you know, that was an extra revenue. So I generated this revenue by just that one time I persuaded the client to, and I pushed the client to actually have this photograph. So yeah, that's the backstory for this family portrait. My favorite, my divas that I shoot. So again, in 2003, there was no concept of shooting women while getting ready. You know, first of all, obviously they were male photographers, so they would not enter a bride's room while they're getting ready. Today is different. You have a lot of male artists, makeup artists, and also the photographers are, you know, welcomed in the room while the women are getting ready. But at that point, they were more conservative, and they hadn't actually ever thought of this idea. So yeah, at that point I had introduced this because I used to find it very fascinating how women, we all, you know, spend so much time in, you know, the nitty gritties and detailing and, you know, getting ready for the day. So why not capture them while they are getting ready? I mean, it's so exciting behind the scenes. So this is one of my bride, and I had she requested me that could you please make sure, as all women wouldn't want to look, you know, all women want to look thin and thinner than they are. So she had requested me, and I had actually thought of a different point of view, which is, if you notice, it's a top view. So I actually went, climbed up the table, and took a top view of her, which just completely changed the whole perspective of this bride. Again, one of my favorite portraits. So here's one very interesting moment where, you know, Genelia and her, you know, there was this amazing chemistry between Genelia and her dog, and you know, she just knew, she knew that that this moment, you know, she may not see Genelia for, as she's so used to being on her bed, and now, you know, of course, you know, there is going to be that difference. There's going to be that distance, and it was not posed. It was nothing. This moment just happened, and you know, it was just an honest moment. It was just the most beautiful moment, the most beautiful chemistry between, you know, the human love and the animal love, and how it's just so faithful and it's unconditional love, and I had to capture this. Again, this is a first look, in Cochin. I just shot recently, and again, a very interesting story when I see this photograph, because this was again not planned. It was suddenly that the bride mentioned to me that she mentioned actually to the wedding planners that she would like to capture the first look. And the planners came up to me and said, you know what, we don't have that time. We never really thought of it earlier. She never told us earlier, so we don't have it in the show floor. Uh, and as it is, it's a morning wedding. You know how it is when the bride is getting ready. So I don't know if we are going to even make it. Like, I don't know how to squeeze this time. How much time do you guys need? I said, well, it has to be done properly. We need about 15, 20 minutes. Like, and she's like, no, 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 Ronicka, this ain't happening. Can we do this faster? I said, look, please don't put pressure on me. We'll try. We'll see. But you have to tell me what time. She said, we can't tell you the time. And I was like, how do you expect me to plan this out when you're not giving me the time and you're saying you don't have the time? And she said, okay, look, we've got to do this for the bride and let's do this together. I'm just going to tell you, minutes before the bride walks out of the room. And you just try and figure this out, please. So I worked backwards and I thought, okay, how can I solve this? And I said, because I had to also capture the bride getting ready, the groom getting ready, and then also be there strategically positioned when the bride walks out. So I said, okay, fine, we'll do this for the bride if she wants it. And then I remember, quickly first doing a location scouting, which actually should be planned. But sometimes an impromptu situation like this occurs. And I remember just, looking for this space in the hotel Lee Meridian in Cochin. And I figured this was, a good place to shoot. Quickly ran back to the room, captured the bride, quickly went back to the groom's room, captured the groom, and somehow, got everything together, got my story and got what I wanted. And then, just when I got a call, I was already walking towards the passage. And I was there. And she said, okay, Ronicka, the bride's about to enter like in 45 seconds. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready. And suddenly they came and I said, okay, I have only like 5 minutes before they actually walk out. And so, yeah, I took this shot again, found a nice vantage position where I could get the right emotion, because if you notice, there is lack of space here. So I really couldn't be in front of the groom, otherwise all joy would have gone. So I chose to climb up some staircase, which was here, and took this shot from there. And this actually went on to become the cover of the coffee table book that I made for the couple. I don't know if I mentioned, but I do a lot of coffee table books for my clients. I've authored about 28 coffee table books, and those are again only made by me in the country. I'm the only one who makes coffee table books on weddings. So this was very exciting, and this went on to be the cover of my book. So this is Frame Within a Frame and Stunning Chavi Sharma, and I just love this, this jali through which I could just see Chavi getting ready in the washroom. And, I was outside and there was this beautiful jali, which I found the pattern very exciting. And I was trying to get something in this, and I was trying to see if I could see Chavi from here, and there, bingo, I got it. This was the most beautiful church I've seen in India, in Cochin, and yeah, this I just saw this beautiful reflection, and I couldn't help capturing this shot from behind, because anyway, in the church they kind of restrict your movement, and this was in one shot just gave the whole overview of the wedding. So this was again a very interesting shot. This was in 2000 and I think 7 or 2008, somewhere back then. So of course, height has been a bit of a restraint for me. I'm not that tall. So when I went and shot this wedding in Bombay, I was on top of the stage, and there was no way that I was going to make it, even if though I was on my toes trying to capture, the vantage position, my favorite angles. But in this way, there was no way, because it was this, this separated chadar that they put in between the couple, and I wanted to get both of them, but I was either getting the bride or the groom. So I was like, okay, the only way I can do it is sort of climb at the top. There was no ladder. There was just nothing I could climb the usual way. I would always take my vantage shots, but and even getting on my toes, I wasn't blessed with the height that I could perhaps get a vantage view. So suddenly I said, okay, fine, duck down, and I just quickly ducked down, and I just took some shots from below the angle, and I just managed to take it without actually even having to look at it, because when I ducked down, I couldn't really look into the viewfinder, and I just took some shots, and I was hoping position my camera angle, and there we got the shot. Then this is the beautiful bride, Bani, in Atlantis, Dubai. Some wedding in Delhi, a pre-wedding, unusual, very unusual backdrop for a pre-wedding shot in Varanasi. Some maternity and baby shots. Again, something I love doing. I always say, as a photographer, and as a wedding photographer, we guys are not just shooting people. I mean, it's not just about shooting a wedding. The wedding has everything going in. It has, kids photography. It's got landscapes, because you're covering the grand sets. You're technically shooting food sometimes, or the details. So you're technically doing product photography or food photography. You're shooting so much emotion in a wedding. You're shooting quick photographs of the dance performances. So there is a lot of action that you're shooting. So as a wedding photographer, if you actually understand this, we can actually wear different shoes. We can be in different squares, and we can actually start exploring our other skill sets of not just wedding photographer, as a wedding photographer. So for me, I love shooting kids and babies, and also pregnant babies, and I just love the bump. So yeah, these are some of the shots I've taken. And then it's of course also added revenue again. Like if you start shooting the wedding of a family, the after that, the stages of, the bride will soon become a mother, and then a mother will soon have a child. I mean, mother will have a child. So you can actually start capturing all the phases from the bride to the bump to the baby, and increase your revenue model. So yeah, so this brings us to the end of my slide and all the talking of my work, and time for the Q&A. So Mukesh, let's
Yeah,
just have
thank you.
some question and answers. I hope that was insightful enough for everyone.
Wonderful, amazing work we have seen. I guess otherwise, you don't get to see such behind the scene images, like especially those weddings of movie stars or other people, like these luxury in the luxury wedding segment. Um, we have a couple of people, those who have raised their hands. I would start inviting them. We have Akurba Haldar. You are unmuted. Please go ahead and you can ask your question. Uh, we have Wasim Akram. You can ask your question. You are unmuted. Okay. Meanwhile, seems like they have some connectivity issue, but I have a lot of questions which came on chat.
I can hear, but I can't hear them clearly. I can hear some sort of
Correct. Some background noise is there.
yeah,
We all are
something.
having trouble in the connectivity and the internet issue. That is pretty much common these days. So we have,
Yeah, with all the people around, I think this is still so far least troublesome.
Yeah. Prabhas, you can unmute yourself and you can talk.
My question is how you set up the lights? How many lights you use generally in the regarding at the place of wedding or the type of reception stage?
Is it Prabhat? That's what your name is? Sorry?
Prabhas.
Prabhash. So, yeah, hi Prabhash. Prabhash, now when you say how many lights, it really depends on the situation actually. It's very situational. I try and minimize, the whole complication of too many lights, to be very honest. Because as you know, weddings, it's very quick and there is just it's not restricted to only one place, right? It's all over the place. There is something happening here, there's something happening there. And when you talk about lights, are we specifically talking about the wedding event or are you talking about the pre-wedding? First of all, I'd like to know that.
Maybe you can answer both. It might help other
So,
people as well.
so yeah, when you say event photography, I was always into candid photography, right? So I personally prefer shooting ambient light. So I personally don't like to use a lot of external lights, while I'm shooting the event. But of course, there are a lot of times that there are situations where there is just no light, or it's too dark, or the lights keeps changing in an event. At that point, you have to have an external light. So sometimes we have one light somewhere positioned, with one of my assistants would have it, but I don't like to use on camera flash, to be honest. I try and bounce the light from wherever possible. So minimum lights while shooting the events. But because honestly, I personally, in all my years of experience, there's hardly very few times that we've had to use external lights during the event, because there's a lot of external lights, which are there by the wedding planners. And if you work in sync with the wedding planners, you kind of also, when you talk to them, we always rehearse the lights at times that they would ask us, and we would tell them that this is where we want less warm light, and if you can make it a less fluorescent lights in this area, they kind of manage it for us at that point. Um, Also, when you talk about pre-weddings, in pre-weddings, anywhere between, you can say 2 to 3 lights, but not more than that. Sometimes it's also just one light. Again, you don't need more than one light, and maybe reflection. We reflected to, we bounce it off from another reflector or something, and we reflect the second. I mean, there's one key light, and when we reflect it by the reflector, so technically maybe just one light and one hair light. So 2 lights, a reflector. You don't really need more than that, to be honest. Is there any other question, Mukesh? Can you hear me? Because I suddenly can't hear anyone.
Okay. So we have question from Abhishek.
Right.
The question is about, actually, there are a couple of similar questions. Let me club them together. One, negotiations with the client for wedding, with whom you do like groom, bride, or commonly, how do you approach that negotiation? Second is your approach about taking the advance, like the payment structure and the contract and delivery. So it's a pretty long question. So it's more or
Don't worry.
less asking the workflow. So the question is from Abhishek, Jay, and a couple of more people.
Okay. So hi Abhishek, hi everybody else who asked a similar question. I'm going to try and club all of this into, all these different questions into one answer. So when you talk about, how do you negotiate with the client? First of all, I try and avoid this negotiation, because I personally feel we're all artists and we also deserve to have our fee. And the moment, in a wedding, there are budgets for everything. I mean, they have huge, and depends again, first of all, it's very important where you operate. You have to identify, are you in the luxury weddings, are you in the mid scale or you are in the budget weddings? So because it's a graph. It's like a so you have to figure that out. Where do you stand first of all? So if you are in the luxury space, because I'm in the luxury market, to be honest, there are budgets, and I mean there are no budgets. Sorry, that's what I mean. They have accommodation for for having the topmost things, and they have the money for it, and they have the finances for it. And yes, when it comes to photography, I somehow always believe that I don't want I want the clients to be educated and for them to know that photography also needs its separate you have to apportion the amount for it. You cannot think that it's just photographs, so you just cut the amount there, because technically it's just a fraction of a wedding budget. I mean, people have say how many crores for one wedding. Photography just takes an iota of that. So why should it all come down to wedding photography, and that's when the budgeting starts, and that's when the negotiations start. So I kind of pretty much stuck to my ground for very long, and I think I've been known for to be honest, I've been known for not probably accepting a few weddings just because they were either negotiating too hard. So I rather let go than lowering my price, because if I lowered my price, then other clients would know that, and then those people would start. So it's like a vicious circle you get into. It was a tough call. I'll be very honest. It was a very tough call that would I want to lose on to the client? But I chose to keep my branding up. And honestly, maybe initially I would have felt bad. I lost on to a project. But in the long run, it really paid well, because people knew that Ronicka stands for her costings. She's expensive. And I didn't mind wearing a tag of expensive, because, hey, I believe luxury comes with a price tag. I mean, you buy anything expensive today, anything which is luxury, it comes with a price. So you do apportion that for it, right? It's how you brand yourself. It's how you position yourself. So right from the beginning, I had positioned myself that I don't mind being called expensive, but only people who know the worth of it or who want this will come to me. No problem. So that's one part of it. And the other part is, who do I speak to, right? Mostly, obviously, the decision maker are the parents, because that's where the money lies. Children are just, they are there to facilitate you. So I make sure that the bride, mostly the brides, because I work a lot, maximum with brides, because I do a lot of these bridal, portraits, and in the room, they are very comfortable with me around. So personally, I try and crack the bride. I try and make them fall in love with my work, with what they see, with pampering my brides, having a meeting and, inviting them over for a wine and cheese and show them my, entire showcase of work. That's when, the brides are sold half of the time, and they know that she stands for quality. Once the bride or the groom are sold, they like your work. Of course, now comes the parents, because ultimately money they have to spend. But, I think today's generation, they are just so clear-headed. They know what they want, and they know that they'll convince their parents that, okay, mom, dad, this is what I want, So 80%, honestly, it works. When the bride and groom are sold, it works. It's already worked. But sometimes, yes, they are tough cookies. The parents are tough cookies. They would negotiate, and they would sit down on the table. So like I said, I try and avoid the negotiation. But of course, at the end of it, it's not like I have to shut down my business. I need to work. So sometimes, it's a good project. They're getting multiple projects and multiple days of shooting with them. So a little bit flexibility. Maybe I'll do some value add, and I'll say, okay, fine, I'll add something for you here. I'll do a portrait session, which I can do as added sort of gesture from my side, and something like that. And I try and meet it somewhere where it's not something which is not valuing my craft, because I feel if we do that for the fraternity, we are not doing good. If we really lower the amount of the charges, or the amount that you charge. So I don't know if I've answered all of it. Any other part that I'm missing on?
Yeah, the last part is about the contract once negotiation is done.
Yeah. So I think contract is, to be honest, very important in today's time, because when I started out, there was no contract. There was just no contract. In fact, for very for the longest time, I didn't see contracts coming in place. But I was very happy to see recent changes of a contract coming in. And I think it's so important, whereby your deliveries are mentioned very clearly. Your, number of people, that you're taking, your time, in how much time you're going to deliver, your payment, your mode of payments is right there. So yeah, I remember somebody asking me, I think Mukesh had told me, you take advances 100%. I always aim for a 70%, which usually doesn't happen, but it's 50% of advance, which is a done normal, way of working, and I don't budge. Sorry about that. I don't budge from that. So 50% advance has to be given by the client. After that, I take another 20 to 30% after I have, given like the first cut of the film. And say, for example, if I've shown them the photographs on, when I send them an online link, so that's 30%. And on delivery, that's when all my money has to get cleared. So on delivery of the albums, when everything is done from my side and I've handed over the albums to them along with all the high-res images, I make sure my amount is given to me then, because after that, once the account is closed, I don't like to ask for money. So yeah, these are very important terms, I think, to have in your contracts.
Excellent. Have a question, like what is typical timeline of delivering of first cut, then final delivery, like and the movie? So typically, how much time do you take or you negotiate with the client?
Yeah, so right from the beginning, I mean, initially I was only into photography, and then slowly I added film to it, and other stuff. But when we talk about deliveries, I always thought 2 months straight. And especially my deliveries are very strict. If I set 2 months, no matter what happens in 2 months, they will get it. From my side, they will get it unless there is a delay from the client and they haven't given an approval, or if they are traveling and they haven't been able to communicate back in time, that is their problem. But if I have committed, I will honor the commitment no matter what. So till now, I've never, ever delayed my timelines. I've always met them, and 2 months is what I always tell them. But see, also you have to understand a lot of things are changing with the whole social media, digital age stepping in so much. Now it's the whole timelines have changed. Earlier it was 2 months. It was still fast. It was very fast. People would be like, "Oh wow, 2 months is like really fast. You can get the work." But now with with sharing online, before you can give it, they've already got the feel of the wedding by some guest or the other capturing it from their mobiles, which they've already uploaded it on the, on their Facebook or their Insta stories or somewhere. So you want your work to be out there because that's publicity for you. So you would want to make that quick. So sometimes we do, live edits. We have to do it because if we want the trailer to be made, which is really quick, and we want our branding to be there, we have to work doubly hard. So sometimes it's a live edit that the same venue when we are shooting, there is an editor who's sort of editing alongside, which can be just a small trailer, depending on if the client has obviously paid extra for it or not. And sometimes the first cut of the film, we try and give it like within 10 days to give a small teaser. It's very important because in 10 days also now things have started becoming stale. So we have to, with time, with the whole digital age, we have to fasten our processes, and that will come from workflow. How well you can have your the workflow structured and crafted. That's how you can churn it faster. But it's a lot of pressure on us now. It's the timelines are a lot of pressure now.
Oh, okay. Have a related question, like how is your team structure? Like including the first shooter, second, or you mentioned that you take an editor also along with you sometime. So how do you plan your team? Do you take freelancers that time?
So see, it all depends. Like mine is a boutique company, right? I'm not into numbers of doing like 200 weddings or 100 weddings a year. So I'm into more of doing luxury. I'm into the luxury space where I take like 12 or 13 weddings a year, and which is fairly a good number of weddings, which are big weddings, and I'm happy doing that because I can look at other aspects of my life as well. And so when we do that, I don't have a very large team. And also I feel, to be honest, because I've started when I started out, I used to shoot just by myself, and I've shot a wedding with 2 lakh people all by myself and one assistant. Really, I'm not kidding. 2 lakh people, which is in a stadium, like, we had a reception. So if I shot that, I always felt that, having a large people number team, it's just to make your work a little easier. I mean, you don't need a very large team, but you need with the film and with photography together, you may need, larger than a photography team, obviously. So when we talk about how many people I take, there is, first of all, it's a hierarchy. So there has to be a production manager on, while the wedding happens. So there is obviously me, there is a production manager, then there is, there are about 2 to 3 camera per people if it's a film. And so there are 3 cameras, there is 1 drone, and there are a few assistants. When we come to a photography team, in photography, again, it's me, which is the main principal photographer. I have a second shooter. And normally, honestly, I don't take too many people in photography, but then sometimes it's a large wedding. It also depends on how big, what's the scale of your wedding, and is it in various locations, because at times it's a destination. So there is something going on somewhere. There is another thing going on at another place. So depending on that, I have to first speak to the client and figure out the structure of the wedding, the expanse of the wedding. And then I kind of, have my team in place.
Okay, great. We have more question. I think let's take the last question before you start a new segment. Some of the questions about workflow I am holding up right now, because you will be covering your workflow in the second half of the presentation. Harmit, you are unmuted. If please unmute yourself and go ahead asking your question. Okay, seems like some difficulty here. So one question we have: what is in your gear? What all gears do you use?
Okay, so let me, if you say gears, are we talking about film photography? So let me take up photography.
Yeah,
We say, yeah, so when we take up, photography, first of all, I would like to again emphasize on the fact gear is important, but it's not the gear that makes good photographs. It is you behind that gear. Okay, so you can also shoot an entire wedding with a 50 mm lens. That's it. It depends how you shoot it. I have met photographers internationally who have shot the entire wedding with a wide angle camera lens. That's it. And what fantastic photographs they've taken. So it's not really about how many lenses one has or what's the kind of gear. But yes, of course, I mean, I'm not denying the fact that you do need a decent gear. So yeah, I mean, I shoot with a Mark III, Mark IV. Sometimes I don't have to have a Mark V. I don't have to have a Mark IV. Even with Mark III is okay. And it's the lenses when you talk about. My favorites have always been a 50 mm, a wide angle. I love 16-35. I love my 50 mm. I love shooting the brides with 85 mm. And I love low depth of field, so I try and shoot in 1.2, 1.4. I know it's a little difficult to shoot there because the focusing is slow, but I kind of love the shallow depth of field. And sometimes I also, to be honest, have macro lens in me. Because I do a lot of detailing when I'm shooting the bride. That's when the macro lens comes in very handy. During the event, 70-200, it's obviously the good lenses to shoot with. I also have my converters at times. So 1x converter gives me great because I can go even further. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I use a tilt and shift if the time allows me, and we've reached earlier and we want to do something different. We also get in a tilt and shift. But more or less, these are the lenses that I shoot with.
Great. So I have a caller, Apurva Haldar. Please go ahead and ask your. Apurva, you go ahead and ask. Seems like, yeah, seems like again there is bad internet. So we can continue with the remaining part of your presentation, and then
Okay.
we'll connect again and we'll answer remaining questions.
Okay, so coming to the next part of my presentation, since we have some time left, I'll quickly run you through all of that. This is the coffee table books that I was talking about that I make. It's a published book. This is
Yeah,
something that I specialize in.
please share your screen.
It's not shared. It's
Uh,
not
in
shared.
between, in between, we were running something else. That's why.
Okay, I am trying to. 1 second. All right. It's okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Right. So this is these are my coffee table books, and I love them. I just this is because it gives me a lot of creative leeway to play with my books, and these are the books that I've personally done. These are also some
Presentation
of
mode.
the other books.
Presentation mode, please.
Sorry, yes, view and slideshow. But could you see the earlier slide?
Yes,
I
we could
can't.
see. Thank you.
Okay, 1 second. 1 second. Yes. So these are some other books that I have also done, just to give you a glimpse of what coffee table books are. These are some albums. That's how I present my work. Okay, coming to the other part of my presentation. So of course, understanding how of luxury weddings is very important. Capturing masterclass images, mastering an effective workflow, and then my favorite, work-life balance. So coming to understanding luxury weddings, I think they are very important three main key aspects to it. It's marketing, it's pricing, and it's branding. I've also elaborated on the three of them for you all. When we talk about marketing, so I'm sure everybody comes up, with this whole thing of how do you build your marketing plan? Like, who are you actually marketing to? So I would say, yeah, what's important is that you actually first pen it down. What's your market position? Where you want to be? You want to be in the high end, the competitive, or the budget market, like I earlier said. So it's very important for us to identify where we would like to be. As exciting as the high end luxury market sounds, there's a lot of pressure, and sometimes it's easier actually to handle budget weddings. But then, of course, there is the other flip side that they are budgets, so you have less budgets to play with. So it depends what you really desire. I always wanted to operate in the high-end market, in the luxury segment, do limited work, but do good work. We have to be associated with good clients. So that was where I came from, and that's what I wanted. So it depends on what you want, and that's how you market yourself. There is unique selling position. Your services will depend on that. If you are in the high segment, you're obviously going to have the best products, the best quality. You have to spend more money for that. So that's how it works. You have to also understand where the demand is going to be. So if you are in the luxury segment, I cannot be expecting somebody, from like from a town where I know that they are not going to have those kind of budgets. So you need to identify your market. Where is it coming from? Like if I'm in the budget segment, then I obviously, I'm not going to be shooting maybe in a 5-star or, in a international destination. So, you have to anticipate your demand. You have to also, add value to your customers. Um, you have to know the demographics, their age, their gender, what are their lifestyles. This will help you in actually doing your social media platform. So when I'm doing my social media, if I know that my bride, for example, is anywhere between 18 to say 25 or 26, or I'll say probably push it to 30, because normally, in the luxury segment, they kind of get married around that time. And so I'm going to target, okay, so brides, say metropolitans, Delhi, Mumbai, maybe Chennai, because down south they spend a lot of money. I'll probably cater to Hyderabad. So I know that these are the cities in India. This is the age group of my bride. It's mostly the brides, because women are going to get attracted to any of my publicity that I'm going to do social, on the internet. They are going to see it. They have to fall in love with my photograph. they have to be convinced first. So I'm going to leave the male gender out. I'm going to focus on my bride. So that's how you start sort of planning your marketing. You know how to market yourself, especially through social media, because that's actually one of the most powerful tools you have right now. And I mean, of course, word of mouth, I would say, is the most powerful. But after that, I think social media is equally important in today's time. Then comes your customer management. How do you manage your clients? How do you pamper them? So I believe a lot in pampering my clients. I remember in 2000, and it was very early actually. It was in 2007, I think, if I'm not wrong. There was a bride who I'd shot for, and I thought, how do I pamper her, and what is it that I can do special on her first anniversary? Because that client was fantastic. You know, they gave me what I wanted. You know, in terms of the monies that I needed. They were such a beautiful family to be associated with. So I really wanted to do something special for them. And I thought, what can I do? So I actually thought of having an iPod. So I spent money to buy an iPod in 2007, 2008. I'm missing the year, but around that time. And I actually put in all her wedding pictures into the iPod and gifted it to her on her first anniversary. And I remember that was such an amazing surprise. She went completely clean bold. And after that, I made an association with the family to shoot all the weddings in the family. So, you know, those are the ways you have to also market yourself. Of course, I had my branding. It started with my name. It ended with my logo in the iPod as well, because I created a slideshow. So, you know, you have to think of innovative ways how to do that. You know, I also send a lot of corporate gifting with my logos and everything. So that again pampers the clients. So that's your ways of marketing also, which is unusual. It doesn't have to be just an online emailer or a handout brochure or whatever. So you can think of all of that. What are your ways of marketing? Nowadays there's blogs. So if you go onto the website, go onto my website, you'll see some blogs there. You can collaborate with people. There's these social media influencers nowadays. You can come up with something innovative that you could probably do a shoot with them or something, and they'll talk about your brand. So there are so many ways of branding yourself today and marketing yourself. Coming to pricing, you have to understand the luxury society if that's what you're catering to, or whichever market you are catering to. You have to reinvent your brand, because again, like I said, when I started out, it was different. I had to again revamp. I had to add values to my brand, whereby maybe I had to add film. Like I said earlier, I was only doing photography. I had to pull in film. I started doing coffee table books also. So there are a lot of other stuff that I started doing, and accordingly the pricing, the structure, you have to add more value, and so the pricing keeps changing also. And then you have to have this, and of course a lot of it also depends on the experience you've had in the market. So I've been shooting for last 17 years in the Indian wedding industry. So of course there is a certain amount of respect. There is an experience, and there is I can charge accordingly also. I obviously, that's why I have to charge a little more, because I've been there for so many years. I have a fantastic experience, an amazing clientele that I've shot with. Then give the best quality of your products and price services. Absolutely. If you don't spend for your clients, if you don't spend on quality, you will not be able to charge your price. So it's very important that you spend a good amount of money when it comes to also delivering the products that you give to your clients. So best albums, best probably these softwares that you use. Invest in all of these so that you can churn out your work faster in your workflow and other stuff. Give a personal touch with detailing. Also helps a lot to do with your price structure. I personally get involved in every stage of my workflow, and that's why my clients understand, and I say, and that's when it separates me, because I'm like, okay, the team is there, but Ronicka is involved in every stage. So you have to understand that if I'm doing the coffee table book, or if I'm shooting, I'm personally present. I'm not going to take 2 events that my team is shooting somewhere else, and I'm shooting, I have 2 teams or 3 teams, and I'm doing multiple projects a day. I'm dedicated to your work. I will be there personally overseeing this, and I'm shooting there. So obviously the pricing will change accordingly, right? Then comes your branding. Now, very important, is branding. It's your communication. How do you want yourself to be projected to your clients? to me, since I'm in the luxury space, and also I think because it's naturally comes to me, I have sort of always positioned myself, with a lot of detailing, with a lot of style, with a lot of, right from the beginning. My first wedding, I remember, if I was probably, if you take away the camera from my hand, you would feel I'm like a guest there. I'm invited there. That's how I would always, present myself. And therefore, I also, that same communication has to speak in every part of my branding, whether it's my website, whether it's the albums and my logo that's thought upon, whether it's my packaging or my, sort of anything. I mean, like, even if it's my corporate gifting, I think about it. I think how it's going to look. But it has to speak luxury. It has to talk about my brand, so it has to reflect that. So everything, right from my logo, my website, my brand stationery, everything has to be thought upon to communicate what you are representing. Coming to how do you capture some masterclass images, I had somebody who asked me this question, to be honest. His name was Ravish Rai. He's from Mangalore. I don't know if he's listening to this, but I told him I'll take it up, in the master class. And he asked me this question of how do you create, what do you see through your lens or your viewfinder when you create a good image? So it's not really, one thing, or it's, I think your eyes get trained over the period of time that now we don't think it just, we know it like now after so many years. But yeah, I mean, when you think about how to train your eyes, I would break it down to composition, lighting, posing, and storytelling. So, it could be one, it could be two of these aspects, it could be all of them in one image. It all depends, but I think for me, storytelling is extremely important in an image. Somehow the emotional aspect always catches your attention. Uh, the lighting, if it is a fantastic lighting, it adds to it. So emotion, lighting, the composition, your composition is so important. It can just lift up the image, it can break or make an image, I feel. And posing, yes, I mean, like, there are people who love posing the couple and then put in emotion, which also works wonderful. So, you can make an image interesting with any of these. Coming to composition, I'm sure all of you have now, you can all look up and Google up more into details, but yeah, all these, the shapes, the balance, symmetry, a frame within a frame, just a few, I've just kind of put down a few for you, but all these things help you make a good composition. Lighting, so what is the intensity of your light, how dynamic you want your lighting range to be, between the shadow and the highlights. Would you want a directional lighting, loop lighting, split, butterfly when you're doing specially posed images of pre-wedding? You want Rembrandt, you want, a hair light, what's your white balance, diffusion, your reflection, all of these aspects of lighting is, so important to understand. And I'm sure you can learn more online, just go on and have a look at it. Posing, I think posing is also very important, because that's when your communication skill comes in, and it gives you a time with the client to break the ice before the wedding. And it's interesting how you can actually ask the client, you can direct to the client. That's the time. The client is completely in your hands. You direct the client. It's like when a director, he directs an actor. So your clients are your actors. You're asking them to pose. You're asking them exactly what you want them to do. So you mirror them, right? You ask them to mirror you. So your communication skills in this are really going to help. If you can, gain the trust of your client, you can actually, at that point, they'll do whatever you ask them to do, in terms of, posing and all of that. So you have to be fantastic in direction, how to direct that to your clients. So that's extremely important, I feel. So for that, you should always work on yourself so that you come across very confident in front of your clients. And of course, the wardrobes you have to discuss, and the body language and angles, you have to pay a lot of detailing into that how softly the bride keeps their hand, or the couple, the chemistry between the couple, all of these aspects, the S curve, in a woman's body. So the masculine side and the feminine side, you have to pay attention both in a couple when you're posing them both. Then again, storytelling, I would say, your practice, your ability to evoke that emotion, So you have to think about your hero. Like again, what are you trying to convey in a photograph? So again, what's your unique style? What's your voice? You have to be an observer. You just keep observing, and you sometimes see it just comes to you. And it's always good, yes, to plan the wedding shots and the portraits if you can well in advance. But like I said, there are times you are given an impromptu moment, so you should be able to also adapt to that. Again, now workflow. Workflow has again, I feel there is, with the time changing, and especially the digital age, there is the pressure of delivering very fast work has come in onto our photographers, and that's when either you choose quality or you give them quick work. So that's the kind of problem that we all are facing. But then if you have an effective workflow, you can achieve quality and you can deliver in time or before time, with fast timelines. So very important to have a workflow administration where your data and your training plan, your post-production process is in place. Your business plan is very important. Where do you see your company? What do you think? Like, for example, mine is a boutique company. Some people may be shooting 100 weddings. That's their business plan. That's their business model. So what is it that you want to achieve? How do you see your company going in 1 year or 2 years is very important. Collaborations. Today is the time to collaborate. I think it's so important that you collaborate. For example, if you are a photography unit, you don't have to do film yourself. You can always collaborate with somebody else who's doing film. You could be, you can collaborate with somebody who can handle your social media. You could collaborate with influencers. So there is wonderful collaborations. In fact, for workflow, there are many services now which were not available in 2003, 4, 5, 6, and now it is. So it's beautiful to have these people around who can actually edit your photographs, and you can just send them your Lightroom catalog, and then they edit it and send it back, internationally, Indian companies, anywhere. So there are so many collaborations happening there. So yeah, that's a wonderful time we have nowadays. And workflow, coming to workflow, you capture, you import, you organize, you have to develop them well, and then the output, which is your final albums. I leave this for a moment for all of you, because this is where your entire workflow comes in, the process of your entire workflow. This is what we do. And you can always have some changes here, because there are multiple softwares you can alternate with, whatever you're comfortable with. But this is what works for us really well. Moving on to work-life balance. And this is my favorite subject always, actually. So I think it's, other than work, I think it's also very important for all of us to have a work-life balance. And I think this quarantine has actually told us and made us reflect on that, because today, I think for the last a month and more, we are all just homebound with really no work, with no pressures, no deliveries to the client, no client calling us. This is the time you reflect upon, and I'm sure all of us have enjoyed this time with all the negativity around. Still, we've kind of reflected upon the good side of it, which is spending time with your family, and also having other skill sets, or picking up another skill sets, or focusing on other hobbies. So basically, what I'm trying to also emphasize on is, as photographers, we have no timings at all. We have just no routines in our life. And there is hardly any time we dedicate to our health. We have late night edits. We have sometimes early hours of shooting, like 6 o'clock in the morning. They have some chula ceremony or something, and at odd hours. Sometimes the wedding goes overnight. Like, I've shot a wedding which ended at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I was shooting. I remember there was the early days when there was no contract and we didn't know about timelines and all of that, and we would just go on shooting, because the client wants it like that. And so setting work hours is very important, and we should do that. We should definitely know when to stop, whether it's post-production, whether it's on the wedding day also. Sometimes we just go on shooting the same thing again and again. I would say take a shot and move on. You've taken it, you close that from your story. So you have your storyboard running in your head, and keep a checkbook. You've done it. So yeah, so and your health, which is very important. I know a lot of photographers who have ruined their backs, absolutely ruined their backs now. And but I fail to understand why. I mean, like, we should be able to take care of our health equally more important, because if we are healthy, we'll be able to do good work and more work. Travel, I think travel makes you learn a lot. So I'm sure I mean, all of us who are shooting weddings, we love to travel. We get to travel. We're fortunate to be associated with this field that we get to travel a lot. And if we can't, we must do that. Uh, and then we should learn till the last day. I feel even in photography, there is immense learning. I still learn every day. There is so much change in technology, in photography, in there was no pre-wedding when I used to shoot candids. There was no candids when I'd introduced candids. So the whole wedding industry also keeps evolving, and we have to evolve along with it. Otherwise, we'll be left behind. And then there is family time, and we should also embrace that. Which brings us to the end of our presentation. And thank you very much for patiently listening and being there. And I hope this was insightful.
Oh, yes, indeed it was. And we do have more questions, but I think we can take a couple of them. We don't have much time, but a couple of questions we can take.
Yeah, we can take a couple of questions.
Sure. So, one of the question is like, do you have any internship option with you?
Yes, I do. I, in fact, encourage internships because I feel that, I think today's generation comes in with a very different aspect and perspective to how we see things. Of course, we have a lot of more experience, but I think also the younger generation has a lot of it's a very different aspect or perspective that they come on, and it's very interesting for us because I think you also learn. I learn a lot with interns I've kept recently. I've seen I learn a lot with them too because they come up with something interesting that they push us to do things which we get into our comfort zone and we don't want to do, and we are like, it's okay, we don't want to do that, and we're like, ma'am, what if we do this? Let's do this and let's do. They come up with a lot of energy. I feel it. It's nice to get that energy from them at times, and I think we just bounce it off each other. They get to learn from our experience, and of course our work. We get to learn from when they come in, how they contribute to us. So it's a very nice synergy. I like it, and I always sort of embrace interns.
You guys connect with her directly on her through her Insta. That's the best way to do that, or through your
Yeah, or
website.
just shoot me an email. I think that's the best way. Or I always say is, please shoot me an email with your bio, with your photographs, whatever portfolio you've done, and just send it across. I'm going to have a look at it, and then we can take it from there.
And some questions about your workshop too. Like,
Yes.
and in fact, it comes with a, like some people say that you don't put a lot of stuff on social media. You've been away from social media. Any reason for that?
Yes, there is a very big reason for that. Like I said, I was in the luxury segment. I've been operating ever since, and all my clients are, as you get into the very VIP circle, you realize that they also have a private life which they don't want to share publicly. So you have to respect that as photographers. So it's of course it's my work. I have shot for their weddings, but also it's their private life, and I sometimes it's they don't want it to be out in the open. So that has just trained a lot of times for me to put a lot of my work out there. For example, just as I was telling you, the Saudi clients, the royal family in Saudi Arabia, when I shot this wedding, this is back many years back, and when I shot this, I was the only one who was invited from India to shoot a wedding in Saudi Arabia, which was like, I was completely clean bowl. That was the best it could get ever. And but I was just couldn't put a single photograph. So that was troubling me that I couldn't, because there were so many newspapers who wanted to feature me, but I just couldn't give a single photograph of my client because I had to respect the privacy. So because of that, I get a little restrained. So that's why I don't put much of my work out there.
Okay, and the related question was about your workshops, like how we can learn from you.
Yes, I mean, this year I have committed to starting my workshop. Let's say maybe this webinar has sort of initiated me into it, because I think I was also in talks with Mukesh. We were in talk last year as well, and it didn't happen then. So hopefully, yes, very soon I'm going to also come out with my workshop. It is in pipeline, so definitely I will be doing it. There is 100% that I'm doing it. It's just matter of time. Let's get out of this COVID thing and let's get cracking off that.
Okay. So maybe this is the last question, and that is, you've been shooting luxury, but have
Yeah.
you ever had, even in the luxury segment, those who paid you good and everything, all luxury, but still the client was pretty much, a very regular wedding, like what happens on day-to-day business.
I didn't get the question. Sorry, Mukesh.
So have you ever had any such incident
Mm-hmm.
or had any such wedding, despite being luxury, that everything was normal, normal in the sense like what photographers face day to day weddings.
Okay.
So despite it
Okay.
luxury.
So I have an interesting story here, but I don't know if it's exactly what you're asking, but something similar. So there was a luxury client, like there was a client from the luxury market, but it just so happened. It's a very interesting story. I got a call in the night asking me to come and shoot in the morning. So imagine, normally as wedding photographers, we get pre-booked. We have dates maybe 6 months, 1 year in advance, and here I'm getting a call at 9 o'clock in the night saying, Ronicka, you have to come tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to our house. And I'm like, 8 a.m. You're telling me at 9 p.m. Previous night, like, what's the matter? So this was a wedding. It was a wealthy client, but apparently it was a very memorable wedding for me because so the bride and groom side were not in agreement together to have this wedding. So the wedding was to take place in the bride's house, but the groom side was not in agreement. So it was only the
Mhm.
groom, I think is one of his uncle, it was his granddad, and it was one of his friends. So there's three people from the groom side, and the rest of them are all the bride side, and it's happening in the bride's house. Although they have all the money, but they couldn't have a lavish wedding because of this dispute. So it was a quick wedding, which was supposed to be in their house premises, and there was literally 4 columns which were installed in the house lobby, right? That was literally the smallest it gets. It's just 4 columns in the house lobby, and I was still to make it look, as if it was, the 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 most memorable. I mean, it was the most memorable day for the bride, but I had to make it look grand. I had to make it still look the red letter day for her, the most important day for her. So that was a very big challenge because, with all that trouble and all that tension which was going around for the bride, how do I put a smile on her face? How do I make it look luxury? Because she did belong to a wealthy family. They could have gone all out, but because of the unforeseen circumstances, they had to really do it this way. How do I make it, still look grand and beautiful? And, when she looks back at the album, she still feels, oh my God, this actually happened like this, but it looked so big, So yeah, I actually, it was the smallest wedding I've ever shot. But it turned out to be very grand in the photographs because I was still able to capture it in that way because I was determined for her to look back in these memories and never to feel that, oh my God, I should have had a big wedding and I missed onto it. It still looked big to her.
Great. People had a lot of question about the branding, about your workflow, but I guess all the questions are answered with your slides.
Great.
Guys, um, now it's time. We already 8 minutes above the scheduled time. Please, one request to all: please do donate to for the cause for the Prime Minister Release Relief Fund. We have a link on our website, and we will be sharing you further link. But please do donate whatever you can. And closing remarks from you, Ronicka, and thank you very much. Really appreciate that. One more thing I would like to add, guys, if you want to learn the branding, you must visit her office. I know she will not allow everyone, but I had an opportunity visiting her office. The way she has made it, that you cannot talk there and talk about money. You just go, there are so much of stuff there. You can spend hours together. It's a small gallery, some coffee table books there. and you would spend a lot of your time talking about the deliverables, photos, and discussing those stories. Probably you will not ask money to negotiate. And the second part would be looking her business card. I have her business card and I have saved it. Usually I take a picture and then I discard that, but I'm still saving your business card, which is a, like the
Oh,
golden engraving in that. So
yeah,
that's,
that's
that, and that is one point I guess we all got to learn, get inspired in this way. And of course, the website, you must visit that. Yes, I know how much efforts have gone behind that. I was in between checking that. And with this from you, Ronicka, your closing remarks, please.
yeah, thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Mukesh, for organizing this. And I think it's wonderful to be here and to share this knowledge, whatever little experience that we have. And we will be coming out with a workshop soon, and it will be lovely to have you all over. And yeah, let's learn, let's play with our cameras, and let's roll it. So have a good evening, all of you, and I'm happy to be here.
Good evening to you, everyone. Stay safe, stay home, and thank you very
Yes.
much, Ronicka. Stay blessed.
Yes,
Bye.
and this shall too pass. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.